Hello, everyone, and welcome to Off the Wall. This is day 3 of 25 Days of Christmas here, and I got a special guest, the illustrious, the famous Alan Smithee. Alan Smithee, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic, Soul. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing better because you're here.
Oh, thank you. I'm better for being here. I'm happy to be on the wall, off the wall.
Yeah.
I'm on the wall, but I'm off the wall. So,
Well, today we're going to be discussing your favorite Christmas movie. So, what is that? Tell us a little bit about it and why it's your favorite.
my favorite Christmas movie is the 1980s classic Bill Murray, Scrooged, based on the classic Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, one of the greatest Christmas stories ever told. And from what I understand, historically, that might have actually like reinvigorated people to enjoy Christmas and celebrate it more once that book became popular back in the old days. But
the more you know.
Yeah. But I love, the Christmas Carol is a great thing to be adapted into different formats. So like every sitcom has like their episode where you guess like who's going to be Scrooge and who's going to be Ghost of Christmas Past and Present. So it's definitely like a tradition. And I think there's several other movies that you might talk about later on. There's an animated one that's got Scrooge in animated form. And
there's a Muppet one.
That one. Yes. Michael Caine hanging out with Muppets, Scrooging it up. But I also just think, Christmas Carol and Scrooged, it's fun to like see the bad side of things, to see the bad behavior, because we all know that if the world was, a different way, we might just be bad and misbehave and blah, blah, blah. But we learn through this story, and mostly through being shown your own death, that's when you're like, no, I want to be good. I believe in the Christmas spirit. So that's one of my favorite things about the movie. How do you feel about Scrooge, Soul?
I really enjoy this movie. It's fun. It's definitely 80s, and the hair and the costumes that people are wearing. And I wasn't alive in the 80s, but all the pictures and movies that I see of the 80s, that's pretty much what it looked like.
Oh, sure.
And you just have Bill Murray being one of the greatest like physical comedic actors.
Oh, sure.
And so I really enjoy his portrayal of, it's Frank, but it's basically Ebenezer Scrooge.
It's Scrooge, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fun because the movie does this meta thing where, like, because he's a TV executive, they say, let's have them do like a special, and it's actual Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing the old version, where they're doing it like a show, but at the same time, he is existing in a modern version of the Christmas Carol, where, as a TV executive, he's going to be haunted through that job. And I love all the shows they do. The Bob Goulet Cajun Christmas. The night the reindeer died, where Lee Majors shows up with a machine gun and starts fighting terrorists who attack Santa in the North Pole. It's all quite ingenious stuff there. So
we need those movies for real. I would like them to be made.
Oh, sure.
But one thing that he likes to give gifts of is bath towels and VHS players. So what would you rather have as a Christmas gift? A bath towel or a VHS player?
Well, to be fair, back in 1988, the VHS player was like the top of the line home entertainment system. But nowadays, it would be like the worst. You'd have to go back to like not letterbox, crappy quality. You got to get one of those tube TVs to make it work. Whereas the towel is a towel, but it's the towel that is officially from a television network, and it has the network logo on it. So it's not just a crappy towel you would get at Walmart. This is like an executive level, high grade towel, I assume. So even though back then I'd take the VHS player, nowadays I think I'd take the towel and be like, look, I know the guy that runs ABC or IBC.
Right.
Yeah, but anyway.
So going into this story, just like A Christmas Carol, you get the ghost, and
Mhm.
everyone has three ghosts, but it's technically four ghosts. You get the guy that's introducing, the ghost
Right.
of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future.
Oh, sure.
Of those four ghosts, which was your favorite?
Well, the first ghost is pretty classic when his old boss
Mhm.
shows up and literally has like a mouse living in his head that pops out of a
It
hole.
was so
It's
gross.
pretty gross. But in the overall sense, the ghost of Christmas present is hilarious. And watching Carol Kane with a ballerina like fairy outfit
Yeah.
running around beating the crap out of Bill Murray, socking him in the face. At one point, she just finds like a toaster on the ground and is like, "Look, it's a," and smashes him in the face again. I heard that Bill Murray actually would. I think she was grabbing like his bottom lip and
Mm.
yanking on it enough that they had to like wrap early that day so he could go
Wow.
home and nurse his like injured lip. And considering how bad he's acting in the movie as Scrooge, you kind of feel like, yeah, he deserved that a little bit. Watching him
Hmm.
get his butt kicked was cool. How
I
about
loved
yourself?
it. That's my favorite ghost, Carol
Yeah.
Kane. She was having the time of her life in this
Oh yeah.
movie,
Hmm.
and her beating the crap out of Frank, and just the voice that she has, her being kind of like a ballerina with
Right.
all the glitter, the
Sure.
fairy wings hitting him in the face. Every part of her intentionally or unintentionally
Hmm.
beating the crap out of Bill
Oh
Murray
yeah.
was hilarious.
Even the glitter where she blows it on his face and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's sweet," but it's really a target,
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, it's very funny, very funny.
Now, going from favorite ghost, what are some of your favorite scenes in this movie? Which Carol Kane kicking his butt, is one of my
One of your
favorites.
Oh, sure. I mean, this is loaded with hilarious moments. My ultimate favorite scene, just because it's so funny to me, is the commercial they make for
Hmm.
like they have the crew show their commercial, and it's just a
Hmm.
nice, normal, like sweet. And he hates it, and he says, "This is what I would show." And remember
Yeah.
the commercial, it zooms in on his face like, and he's staring, and it says, "Acid rain, drug addiction, international terrorism." And you're like, what does this have to do with anything? And then
Right.
finally, it's like, now it's time for the true meaning of Christmas. And I can't help but just laugh hysterically at how much he loves that. And,
Yeah.
the guy's like almost vomiting on the way out. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Um, but I also there's a lot of other like he's trying to convince one of the set guys to staple the ears on the mouse, and that's when you're just like, no matter how much you want to like Frank, because he's
Hmm.
such a jerk. Who
Yeah.
would do that? Seriously. But anyway, I also
And
did
the
like the Solid Gold Dancers. That's an '80s thing that I don't know how much people know of that nowadays or whatever. But anyway, Solid Gold was a classic show, and those outfits were a little inappropriate for kids in the holiday season. So that was a very funny moment as well.
when they show that commercial, his commercial, I
Mm.
was laughing so hard at that because I could kind of see them doing that today.
I know, like it was inappropriate in the '80s, but
Yeah.
nowadays it'd be like, no, no, hey, let's do it. The Saw Christmas special or something like
Right.
that.
And the fact
Jigsaw's coming to mess you up because you've been naughty. What the? Oh my god. Anyway,
And the fact that we have later in the movie that an elderly woman died because she was frightened by the commercial too. And
right?
he's like, let's run it now every 30 minutes. This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
great for us.
You can't buy publicity like this. So good, so good. I also have to say, this movie contains the old school Bobcat Goldthwait.
Hmm.
Remember, because nowadays he just speaks normally, but when he was
Yeah.
first introduced, he did that whole thing, that kind of weird voice, and they were able to incorporate, even though he's supposed to be a normal guy in this movie,
Yeah.
they still are like, yeah, do your thing, do your weird Bobcat Goldthwait kind of routine. By the end of the movie, he's nuts and he's losing
Yeah.
his stuff and going crazy, but very
Yeah.
good.
The other thing that I laughed at is that Donald Trump caught a stray in the movie because after Carol Kane hits him with the toaster, he lands in a gutter in a
Yeah.
sewer and he goes, "Where am I? Trump Tower?" And
Yeah.
I laughed so hard because this was back when people still liked Trump majority wise. And that
Right.
there was a moment that they were making fun of Trump even back then in 1988 was funny
I
to
know.
me.
It's funny. It's a little wacky, but I think it's also because all the icicles were hanging, and so
Yeah.
it was a comment on the evil nature of Donald Trump. But back then, they didn't expect what we ultimately know today. Don't
Yeah.
tell any of the people at home what actually happened because it's still happening, kind of.
Right,
Weird way.
right.
But anyway.
But my final question for you on this movie is why should people put this in their yearly Christmas rotation?
Well, if you want a very funny holiday movie, that's part of it. Is my view that this is a funny movie, and not all Christmas movies bring the comedy. You know, like A Christmas Story is a very funny movie too, but this movie is dropping some a little bit more like high level jokes, some
Mm-hmm.
inappropriate humor occasionally. I also will plug the director Richard Donner, who
Mm-hmm.
passed away a year or two ago. He was one of the great directors, and he did just movies like Goonies, like the original Superman or the Lethal Weapon movies, where all these characters are very likable, and he always brought a sense of fun and humor. But he could
Mm-hmm.
also direct a big action scene if he needed to, or special effects or things like that. And I'm a big fan of those types of movies that give you a
Yeah.
lot of, like, action effects, great cinematography. I would also say, not that most people would consider this a major selling point, but this is early in the career of Danny Elfman, the composer,
Mm-hmm.
who started. He used to be an Oingo Boingo, and then he still is an Oingo Boingo now, I guess. And some of his first scores were like Pee Wee's Big Adventure and Beetlejuice. And I think this score was early in his career when he was
Mm-hmm.
still, busting out some of his greatest themes. And I really think this score is fantastic. It adds
Yeah.
a little spookiness. There's a little kind of
Yeah.
like, the carol. You hear the carolers kind of doing the la 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 la, but it's a little
Mm-hmm.
sinister, and
Yeah.
that kind of brings that fun. Ghosts are coming when you hear like a spooky Danny Elfman score. So,
Yeah.
um,
And speaking on the cinematography, the
sure.
shot where he's standing in front of the window in his building and
Hmm.
he has like the drink in his hand and it's panning over and then you can see the moon in
Oh,
the
right,
window and everything and I was like this is such a beautiful shot and I
right.
go well it's Richard Donner, he knows how to make beautiful shots.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Somehow that was probably like a set, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise it's like, how did they put that camera so high up that building? But
Right.
it was a fantastic looking movie, and as you were correct, Richard Donner's movies always look uh, very good. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
huge Goonies fan. You got to give me that movie once a year myself as well, but it's not really attached to a holiday, so anyway.
I mean if you want to watch it at the Christmas time I
Sure.
wouldn't hate
No. Sure, sure.
it.
All right.
Well, any final thoughts on your favorite Christmas movie, Scrooged?
Well, just more high recommends. I'm a big 80s movie fan. I think a lot of new concepts were happening in the 80s that are still happening now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even though it wasn't very popular, we did have another Indiana Jones movie like in the last year. So,
I
um,
liked
all right, so Indiana
it.
Jones fan. But I also I love the Scrooge concept. I think it's fun. You get to play both ways. You get to
Mm-hmm.
be bad and do your bad thing and be selfish. But by the morning time, and again, post, your own death, you
Mm-hmm.
understand and appreciate life and the joy and why you should respect people. Most people. We were talking about Donald Trump a minute ago. So you shouldn't respect everybody, but you should respect most people in your life. And Alfre Woodard, fantastic part, and she was like the
Mm-hmm.
heart of the movie. And watching the way he treated her and her son, you're just like, oh my gosh. He like grabs the son by the neck at a certain point. But by the
That's
end
why
of
it
the
was so
movie,
satisfying that Carol Kane beat him up. You
yeah,
were mean to Alfre Woodard.
yeah, that's like half the movie right there. Is she's
Yeah.
so fantastic, and I love how when she hears she's getting a towel, she gives the straight up to his face reaction. She just goes, ah, sweet. That was me beeping beep, but she goes, ah, beep. because she knows she's getting screwed. So
Mhm.
anyway, but I'd say, there's other more festive movies that you could watch, or movies that are a little more life affirming, or you can just have some fun with some wacky ghosts and that weird new Leave It to Beaver show that they had on the movie. But
Right.
anyway.
Well, anyways, thank you so much for being on the third day
Yes.
of 25 days of Christmas here on Off the Wall. I had some fun. I hope you had fun.
I had fun.
I hope everyone that's watching had some fun watching this. Make sure to keep tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow.
All right.